Good morning, guys. We're looking at Mark 5 today. And there's a section in my Bible that says Jesus heals in response to faith. It talks about on verse 21 how he was getting into the boat again to go to the other side. And he gets this synagogue leader who comes to him and says, "Hurry and come with me. My daughter's sick. I need you to come pray with her. She's going to die if you don't." He said, "Please come and lay your hands on her, heal her so she can live." So Jesus went with them, and all the people followed around him. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years had spent everything she had to pay them. But she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, "If I can just touch his robe, I will be healed." Immediately, the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she'd been healed of her terrible condition. Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone out from him. So he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me?" But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." While he was still speaking to her, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use in troubling the teacher now." But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just have faith." Then Jesus stopped the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except for Peter, James, and John. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing. He went inside and asked, "Why all this commotion and weeping? This child isn't dead. She's only asleep." The crowd laughed at him, but he made them all leave. And he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, he said to her, "Talitha Koum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened, and then he told them to give her something to eat. We all have trials. We all have things that we're going through in life. And sometimes it takes a little bit of extra faith to get through those things. While I was reading about the woman with the issue of blood, Jesus reminded me of June 26th of 2008. I was at Reelfoot Lake in West Tennessee. And we'd been out playing in the lake in the water. We were getting a boat out of the water and my foot got ran over by a truck. The whole inside of my foot from my heel to my toe, the skin was just tore off down to the bone. My brother put a tourniquet on it really quick and then called for the ambulance, but the ambulance was 30 minutes away. So we waited for the ambulance to get there. It's bleeding profusely. You know, when everybody else looked at it, I didn't look at my foot for 3 months, so I don't know what it looked like. When everybody else looked at it, they were like, "There's no way this can be saved." They get me in the ambulance and get me stable and prepared to go to the hospital, which is 30 minutes away. They take me to the hospital and the pain is unbelievable. I'm screaming and crying out in pain, shaking, convulsing, because it was so intense. No matter what they gave me, it didn't help with the pain. I don't even know what all they gave me. I just know they were giving me shot after shot in my IV. Nothing was helping with the pain. And then a lady came in and decided she was going to clean my foot. And there was rock and dirt ingrained down into the muscle and the tendons of it. And I heard a nurse say, "Well, there's nothing we can do. They're going to have to amputate this. But we're going to have to send her to another hospital because we're not equipped to do that here." I remember getting out of the ambulance and my mom said, "How bad is it? How bad is it?" Because they met us at the hospital. And one of the paramedics or EMT that was in the car, he just said, "It's not good." And the first words that came out of my mouth were, "Call Grandpa and have him pray. It's going to be healed." Everybody was looking around me like I was an idiot. They were like, "She's in shock. She doesn't know what she's saying." And I said, "Call Grandpa. Have him pray. It's going to be healed." they took me to another hospital that was an hour away. And at that hospital, there happened to be this orthopedic surgeon on that was, at the time, the orthopedic surgeon for all of the major sports teams in Tennessee. He invented the tools that are needed to do the arthroscopic surgeries. One of the biggest philanthropist surgeons I've ever heard of. He was on duty that night in the ER, and they called him. It was like, it had to have been around midnight at that point. And for 6 or 7 hours, I was in this uncontrolled pain. He said, okay, we're going to take her into surgery. We're going to do what we can do. I remember I was being rolled into surgery in complete delirium, and I said, save my shoes. And he said, I'm going to do what I can do. I said, okay. I said, but God's going to heal this. And I remember they're getting me ready for surgery. And he started praying. And not just praying a prayer, but praying in the Spirit. I came out of a 6 or 7 hour surgery. And he told my parents, he said, okay, I got like 50% of her foot covered. We're going to have to do a skin graft in the morning. So nothing to eat after midnight. We'll do a skin graft in the morning and see if we can get more of it covered. So that morning, they take the dressing off and 75% of it was covered. He said, huh, okay, well, we'll do this again tomorrow. The next morning, 85% of my foot was covered. He said, okay, well, tomorrow we'll do the skin graft for sure. The next morning, 90% of my foot was covered. A foot that did not have enough skin to cover half of it was 90% covered. There was a tag of skin this much that was holding the whole side of my foot together. There were no broken bones. Yes, the ligaments, the muscles, everything was tore off down to the bone, but there was no broken bones in this whole thing where this had been crushed and ground into the dirt. And when God spoke to this woman and said, your faith has made you whole. After 12 years of dealing with the issue of blood, God spoke to me and he said, in that moment, you cried out for help and I heard you. Your faith made you whole and it's going to make you whole again. Then I got to reading about this part where he tells this little girl, Talitha, Koum. Everybody around her was looking at her and saying she's dead. There's no need in bothering the teacher, or they would have said the rabbi. There's no need in bothering him because she's dead. Don't trouble the rabbi right now. She's dead. There's no use in it. But God's telling you today, you're not dead. You are not dead. It is your faith that makes you whole. In those weak seasons when you feel you've been defeated, that you are just broken down, he is saying to you, Talitha Koum, get up, little girl. Get up out of your deathbed. Get up out of here. Whatever is coming against you, it's not going to defeat you because God is fighting for you in everything. He is fighting for you. It doesn't matter what is going on in your circumstances. The Lord of heaven armies goes before you and fights for you. Talitha Koum. Talitha Koum. And then today when I was reading some of my Bible reading, I went back to Psalms 91 again because that's where God's had me in a lot lately, is Psalms 91. And it says, do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in the day. Do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes at midday. Though 1,000 fall at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you, these evils will not touch you. Just open your eyes and see how the wicked are punished. There are thousands falling and tens of thousands dying among us, but we are safe. We're protected. God's not going to let us go. Touch out and reach the tallits of his garment. You know those little strings that hang off of the prayer shawl? Reach out and touch those. That's the hem of the Father's garment. When it looks like everything around you is dead, that you're in that dry season, it's not. It's not all for nothing because God's reaching out to us and he's saying, Talitha Koum, get up, little girl, get up and rise. Do not sit here in your grave. Do not be covered by everything that's going on. Do not proclaim death over yourself, but get up and rise because the Father is going before you.